The date is December 23rd, 1783, Annapolis, Maryland. A tall man in a blue and buff uniform walks into the Maryland State House, which is, at this moment in our history, serving as the capital of the United States. The Continental Congress is in session. He has won the war. The British are gone. The most powerful army on the continent is loyal, fanatically loyal to this man personally. And he could, if he wanted, ride that loyalty straight to a throne. But instead, he reaches into his coat, he pulls out a short speech, and he begins to read. And it says, "Having now finished the work assigned me, I retire from this great theater of action, and bidding an affectionate farewell to this august body, under whose orders I have so long acted, I here offer my commission, and take my leave of all the employments of public life." He hands the paper to the president of the Congress, he bows, and he walks out the door, mounts his horse, and he rides home to Mount Vernon to be there by Christmas Eve. He went home. When King George III, the king we had just defeated, heard that George Washington was actually going to do this, he's actually going to resign and walk away. He reportedly said that if Washington pulled it off, he would be the greatest man in the world. Because kings, they don't do that. Generals don't do that. Caesar didn't do it. Napoleon didn't do it. Cromwell, he didn't do it. And in the long and bloody history of human beings with armies, the man with the army keeps the army. That's the rule. That's always been the rule. George Washington broke that rule. I'm Dan McKnight, chairman of Bring Our Troops Home. I served in the Marine Corps, the Army, and the Idaho Army National Guard. I deployed to Afghanistan's Pech River Valley, and I've stood in formation under 3 different flags of service, and I've taken the same oath every time to the Constitution, not to a man, not to a party, and certainly not to a king. And the reason that I could take that oath, the reason any American in uniform has ever taken that oath, comes down to the man who walked out of that room in Annapolis. He didn't break the rule once, he broke it twice, because 8 years later, after serving 2 terms as president of the United States, with a country begging him to stay for a third, Washington wrote a letter to the American people, published it in the Philadelphia newspaper called the American Daily Advertiser in September of 1796, and he went home again. And that letter is what we now call his farewell address. Most Americans have never read it. We should read it. It used to be read aloud in the United States Congress every February 22nd on his birthday, and I believe this United States Senate still does it today by tradition. But it is, in my opinion, the most important letter ever written by an American. In it, Washington warned us about 3 things, and I want you to listen to his words, not mine, to General President George Washington's words. First, he warned us about political parties. He called it the spirit of the party, and I want you to listen closely to what he said. It serves always to distract the public councils and enfeeble the public administration. It agitates the community with ill-founded jealousies and false alarms, kindles the animosity of one part against another. What great words. Did you hear that? Ill-founded jealousies, false alarms, the animosity of one part against another. That was 1796. And tell me he wasn't writing about us today. Second, he warned us about foreign entanglements, about getting wrapped up in permanent quarrels of other nations. And here's where he gets me, because this is what I've spent the last decade of my life fighting for. He wrote, "It is our true policy to steer clear of permanent alliances with any portion of the foreign world." Why? By interweaving our destiny with that part of Europe, entangle our peace and prosperity in the toils of European ambition, rivalship, interest, humor, or caprice. Why? Why send our young men and women to die in fights that aren't ours? Why bleed for the ambition of another country's politicians? Washington asked that question in 1796, and we are still avoiding that answer in 2026. And the third warning, the one that matters probably the most. He warned us that a free republic cannot survive a corrupt people. His exact words were, "Of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. Virtue or morality is a necessary spring of popular government." Free people, they have to be a virtuous people. A self-governing nation has to be made of self-governing souls. You can't keep liberty in a country that has lost the ability to govern itself in its own home, in its own conscience, before it ever gets to the ballot box. We should review those 3 warnings often: political division, foreign wars, the collapse of personal virtue. That letter was written 230 years ago, and it reads like it was written this morning. Now I want to come back to Annapolis. to December 23rd of 1783, the man walking out of the State House and getting onto his horse. There's a painting of that moment by John Trumbull that hangs in the rotunda of the United States Capitol to this day. Washington stands at the center in his uniform, holding a rolled up resignation in his hand. The members of Congress sit around him. His sword is at his side, and he's giving it all back to the country that he served. Every American oath of office in 1789, every soldier, every sailor, every president, every congressman, it exists because of that moment, because George Washington decided that the man with the army goes back home, because he decided that power is something you hold on to for a season and then you give it back. He gave us a country worth defending, and he gave us a warning in his own handwriting that we're still trying to live up to today. He closed the farewell address with these words: I anticipate with pleasing expectation that retreat in which I promise myself to realize without alloy the sweet enjoyment of partaking in the midst of my fellow citizens, the benign influence of good laws under a free government, the ever favorite object of my heart. The ever favorite object of my heart, a free government, good laws, fellow citizens. That was the dream of the man who could have had it all. He could have been a king, but he didn't want a crown, not a throne. He wanted a free people governing themselves under good laws in a country that he was finally allowed to call home. So on this 250th anniversary of the United States of America, I want you to remember the picture: an old soldier, gray and going blind, in a borrowed room in Annapolis, handing a piece of paper to a clerk and walking out the door, mounting his horse and riding home. That is the American miracle, not the one that won the war. Plenty of countries win wars. The miracle is that the man who won it, what he did next, he went home. Liberty is our legacy. Let's be worthy of it. God bless America, and happy 250th.